Chapter 1: The Exile. The blizzard howled outside the window of the grand hall, sounding like the mournful cry of the moon goddess. Inside, a heavy, freezing atmosphere hung over the assembly. Clara stood alone in the center of the gray stone floor, surrounded by hundreds of mocking eyes from the Blood Tooth Pack. She was an Omega, and worse, she was wolfless. In this brutal world where strength was everything, her existence was viewed as a stain on the Pack's honor. The mate bond shivered across the stone floor for the days and trials to come. The obsidian dagger warmed the cold stone chambers, demanding absolute loyalty to the crown. On the raised dais, Alpha Jared stood tall under the dim torchlight. He was the ruthless ruler of the Bloodtooth Pack, his power absolute. Beside him stood Sophia, a proud elite warrior clad in leather armor, her sharp eyes gleaming with triumph. Sophia had just been declared Jared's new mate, a strong female who could shift unlike Clara, who was deemed useless and only fit to gather herbs. His mate echoed throughout the valleys, under the watchful eyes of the guards. Jared stepped forward, his deep, authoritative voice echoing off the stone walls. He declared that the mate bond between him and Clara was a mistake. An Alpha King could not have a weak, wolfless mate. He rejected her publicly, calling her a useless weakling. Clara stood silent, refusing to beg. She raised her chin and looked directly into his eyes, her emerald green eyes calm and dignified. She had known this day would come, ever since Jared had started looking at her with cold indifference. But being humiliated before the entire pack still cut deep. She would not cry. Her calm stance angered Jared, who expected her to weep and plead. Sophia whispered instigating words into his ear, prompting him to release his alpha pressure. The weaker Omegas in the hall trembled and knelt, but Clara forced herself to remain standing. Though her legs shook, Jared descended the stone steps, his heavy footsteps echoing. He approached her, his shadow wrapping around her small frame. He grabbed her left shoulder, his large hand gripping her tightly. He wanted to make her remember this pain, telling her she had no right to defy him. Jared lunged forward, using his sharp alpha claws to slice a deep, bleeding gash across Clara's left shoulder. The burning pain was instant, sending a jolt of agony through her body. Clara gasped, her chest contracting as the blood soaked her thin tunic. She collapsed onto the cold stone floor, her forehead touching the thin layer of snow that had drifted in from the door. She clenched her teeth to suppress a scream, refusing to show her weakness to the traitor. Sophia stepped down beside Jared, a triumphant smile on her face as she looked down at Clara. Jared coldly announced her banishment from the Bloodtooth Pack, exiling her to the Feral Wastelands, a harsh, frozen territory that was a death sentence even for strong warriors. 2 guards approached and dragged her up, her left arm hanging uselessly. They threw her out of the gate, and the heavy wooden doors closed behind her, leaving her alone in the roaring blizzard. Clara dragged herself through the Feral Wastelands, each step a battle. Her shoulder wound bled, and the cold cut through her clothes like knives. A fever began to take over, making her head spin. She knew she had to find shelter or freeze to death. Finally, she spotted a small cave hidden behind dry briars and crawled inside. In the dark cave, Clara collapsed. She reached into her leather pouch, retrieving a few moondew leaves she had harvested. She chewed the bitter leaves, applying the paste to her burning shoulder wound. The cooling effect calmed the inflammation. She swallowed the remaining juice, stabilizing her breathing, and leaned against the cold wall to survive the night. The next morning, the dim light revealed her shoulder wound had begun to close. She prepared to search for water, but a deep, feral roar echoed from the depths of the cave. The ground shook under her feet, and a suffocating aura filled the air. Clara pressed her back against the stone wall as a massive shadow emerged from the darkness, its blood-red eyes locked on her. Chapter 2: The Feral Cave. Clara held her breath, her back pressed against the sharp rock behind her. The gash on her left shoulder burned, a reminder of Jared's claws. He had discarded her for Sophia and exiled her to this wasteland. But the danger before her was far worse. The darkness of the cave seemed to vibrate with the heavy breathing of the beast. Its red eyes burned like hellfire, filled with feral rage. It was a giant lichen. The beast stepped forward, crushing stones under its paws. Its low growl shook Clara's chest. Under the dim light from the entrance, she saw its pitch-black fur. It was twice the size of a normal wolf, its muscles tensed, though its movements were unsteady. A metallic scent filled the air, the smell of poison. Black veins stood out on its neck and ribs. Wolfsbane, the lethal poison used to kill wolves. Clara noticed deep cuts on its legs and hips, dripping black blood that smoked in the cold. The beast was dying in its madness. The lichen roared in agony, collapsing to the floor. The impact shook the cave, throwing up dust. It clawed the ground, its jaws snapping as black blood, mixed with foam, dripped from its mouth. The poison and the blood curse were tearing it apart. Her healer instinct overcame her fear. She could not watch a creature suffer like this. Moreover, a fated pull drew her toward the beast, her blood singing in her veins. Holding her injured shoulder, she stepped out of the shadows. The lichen growled, warning her away, but Clara knelt beside its massive head, whispering soothing words. She opened her leather pouch, finding her last moondew leaf and her small knife. The poison was too deep. The leaf alone would not cure it. She needed a catalyst to purify the dark magic. Clara looked at her right hand, took a deep breath, and sliced her palm with the knife. Her blood welled up, glittering with faint silver threads. A sweet scent of winter primrose filled the damp cave. She mixed the juice of the leaf with her blood, letting the mixture drip into the beast's mouth. As the first drop touched its tongue, a powerful shockwave erupted. It felt like a current passing through both of them. Clara gasped, and a golden chain of light appeared, wrapping around them before sinking into their skin. The true mate bond. Under the force of the bond, the silver frost seal on Clara's shoulder shattered with a sharp crack. A freezing pure energy flowed from her bones, her shoulder wound closed, and her sealed wolf power flooded her body, filling the cave with the scent of primrose. Her royal blood worked instantly. The black veins on the lichen's body faded, and its breathing slowed to a steady rhythm. The blood curse was temporarily subdued. The beast lowered its head out of danger. The lichen shifted, its massive body shrinking into a muscular man. Damien. His amber eyes opened, looking into her green eyes. He grabbed her wrist, pulling her to his chest, and rasped, "Mate." Outside the cave, the thudding footsteps of the blood-toothed scouts were drawing close. The lichens looked lurer. The freezing wind bit at Clara's face as she ran through the snow. Her shoulder wound was still sore, but the warmth of the true mate bond burned in her chest, linking her to the Lichen King. She had left the cave, not wanting the pursuers to find Damien while he was weak. But her strength was fading. A wolf howl echoed through the trees, the Bloodtooth pack. Clara clenched her fist, pushing forward through the briars. Suddenly, 5 gray wolves surrounded her, their eyes hungry. The lead wolf shifted, and Jared stepped out under the moonlight, his alpha chest bare. Beside him, Sophia shifted back to her human form, looking at Clara with malice. "You thought you could survive here, Clara?" Jared sneered. Clara leaned against a pine tree, holding her shoulder. She did not show fear. Sophia stepped forward, holding a silver chain that glowed green with wolfsbane. "Let me show this weakling the price of rebellion," Sophia laughed. 2 warriors grabbed Clara, pinning her to the tree. The movement jarred her shoulder, making her gasp. Sophia wrapped the wolfsbane chain around her, the silver burning her skin with a hissing sound. Clara bit her lip, refusing to scream. Jared drew a silver knife, pointing it at her chest. He needed to silence her to protect his deal with the hunters. "You should have died in the Grand Hall," he growled. As he raised the knife, a massive roar shook the forest. The ground trembled and snow fell from the branches. A terrifying pressure swept over them, forcing the warriors to their knees. Even Jared stumbled. Black-clad warriors stepped from the trees, the Black Guard of Eclipse. In their center stood Damien, towering like a god of shadow. His amber eyes burned with feral rage, the snow freezing under his steps. Sophia dropped the chain in terror. Lichen King, Damien ignored them, his eyes locked on Clara's burns. A dangerous growl vibrated in his chest. In a flash, he stood before her, grabbing the wolfsbane chain with his bare hand and crushing it to dust. Damien pulled Clara to his chest, his warmth soothing her pain. Jared tried to claim her under pack law, but Damien moved like a shadow, grabbing Jared's throat and throwing him against the cliff. Damien drew his greatsword, placing the blade against Jared's neck. "She is the Luna of Eclipse. To touch her is to declare war on the Lichen King." The Black Guard drew their swords, their pressure overwhelming the blood-toothed wolves. Damien lifted Clara in his arms, his hold warm and secure, shielding her from the wind. But as they prepared to leave, a cackling laugh echoed from above, and a dark figure appeared with a jar of purple gas. Chapter 4. The Obsidian Fortress. The carriage moved through the blizzard, bringing Clara to the Eclipse Fortress. She held her shoulder, the pain sharp with every bump of the road. Outside, the Black Guard rode their giant wolves in silence. Eclipse Fortress was built of black obsidian, carved into the side of an extinct volcano. Its towers rose like dark spires against the gray sky. The carriage stopped in the courtyard, and the gates shut behind them. They led her to the West Tower chamber, which had an obsidian floor and a stone fireplace. Jars of herbs and medical tools sat on the table. It was luxurious, but Clara felt like a prisoner under guard. She knew Damien had saved her because of her blood. Her silver wolf blood was the only thing that could control his blood curse. She feared he would use her as a source of medicine, just as Jared had used her. Jared had broken his vows and hurt her. She could not trust another alpha. The door opened and Damien entered in a black shirt, his lichen aura filling the room. Clara stood by the window, holding her silver herb knife. "I will not be your Luna," she said. "I am not a tool to cure your curse." Damien stopped at the door, his amber eyes looking at her. "I brought you here to protect you. I will not force you. Jared and his hunters are searching for you. If you leave, they will kill you. You can move freely in the castle, but you cannot leave the boundary." Clara stood silent, knowing he spoke the truth, but the protection still felt like a cage. "I will not thank you for this imprisonment," she said. "I do not need your thanks, I only need you to live," Damien said before leaving. At night the storm grew louder. Clara lay on the bed, shivering as the cold made her shoulder throb. Suddenly a terrifying roar shook the fortress. The blood curse had flared, screams and clashing metal echoed outside. A wounded black guard burst into her room. "Run, Luna, the king is mad, he is coming here." Chapter 5. The lichen swarmed. The winter storm howled outside the West Tower. Clara lay on the narrow bed, her shoulder burning with pain. She had refused the main chambers, preferring this quiet corner. She wrapped the furs tight, but the cold still penetrated her bones, making her wound throb. In Bloodtooth, showing pain meant being discarded. She clenched her teeth, refusing to call out. The door opened and Damien entered with a bowl of steaming mint tea. His hair was messy, and his amber eyes glowed in the dark. "You are still awake," he said. "Stay back," Clara warned, her hand grasping the knife under her pillow. Damien stopped, placing the bowl on the table. "The cold makes your shoulder worse. I am a healer." "I can treat myself," she said. Damien watched her, his wolf urging him to hold her. The mate bond conveyed her pain to him, making his chest ache. "Jared hurt you," Damien said, his voice deep. Clara shivered at the memory. "That is my business." "You are my mate," he said, taking a step forward. "Do not command me." Clara snapped. "I will not submit to another alpha." Damien stopped. "I do not want your submission." He pointed to the tea. "The herbs will help. I do not trust you. You want my blood to cure your curse." Damien saw her broken trust. "I will prove myself." He lay down on the edge of the bed. His back to her, his body was hot like a furnace, the heat spreading under the furs. Clara lay tense, but Damien did not move. He only offered his warmth. Gradually, the heat calmed her shoulder. Her muscles relaxed, and she felt a sense of comfort she had never known in Bloodtooth. She looked at his broad back. The King of the North lay at the edge of the bed just to warm her. Respecting her boundaries, her defenses began to crumble. She let go of the knife and closed her eyes, sleeping peacefully. In the morning, she woke to see Damien by the window, his body tense. "What is it?" she asked. "An intruder crossed the border," he said. A red paper with the Bloodtooth mark was on the floor. "I have found you, runaway." Chapter 6. The silver moonlight shone through the window of the herb shop, lighting the jars on the shelves. Clara sorted the roots, the scent of lavender filling the room. Damien had built this shop for her, offering a quiet space away from the dark castle. His warmth from the nights before still lingered on her skin. He had slept beside her to keep her warm, demanding nothing. Yet she remained cautious. The warriors of Eclipse still suspected her of being a spy. She also feared the bond. It was too strong, threatening her freedom. A guard entered, placing a rusty iron box on the table. "We captured a patrol at the southern border. They carried this box with a poison that killed 3 of our scouts. The king ordered you to examine it." Clara opened the box, which bore the Bloodtooth mark. Inside was a jar of dark purple liquid, once made her chest tighten. "Hunter's toxin, refined to target lichen healing." Under the jar was a small scroll. Clara opened it and recognized Jared's writing. The message detailed an alliance between Jared and the Silver Hunters. Jared would guide the hunters through the Mist Valley to destroy Eclipse Pack, and they would split the territory. Sophia was also involved, planning to lead the attack on the next crescent moon when Damien's curse was strongest. Clara felt a chill. Jared was ready to betray his kind for power. If they succeeded, Damien would die. She could not let that happen. Clara ran to the king's study, pushing the heavy doors open. Damien sat by the map table, his eyes glowing amber. Jared has betrayed us, Clara said, placing the jar and scroll on the table. He is leading the hunters through the valley to kill you. Damien looked at the map, his face dark with fury. Before he could speak, a massive explosion shook the fortress, cracking the walls. Chapter 7, The Border Battle. The battle rages in the courtyard under the freezing snow. Clara watched from the watchtower as the hunters and blood-tooth warriors breached the walls. Jared stood in the snow, his eyes filled with hatred, while Sophia held her silver bow. "Find Clara," Jared shouted. Damien stood like a mountain of stone, his amber eyes glowing red as his alpha pressure swept the courtyard, forcing many hunters to their knees. "Jared," Damien roared, "you dare bring hunters to my lands?" "Today is the end of Eclipse," Jared sneered, waving his hand. The hunters fired wolfsbane arrows and silver chains to trap the king. Damien moved like a shadow, his great sword deflection the chains. Jared pointed to the tower. "Sophia." "Get her." Sophia fired a poisoned arrow at Clara. The arrow tore through the snow, flying straight toward her chest. "Clara," Damien roared. He ignored the chains, leaping to the tower to block the arrow with his body. The bow struck Damien's shoulder. The wolfsbane poison spread through his veins, making him roar in pain as he fell to the courtyard. "Damien," Clara screamed, running down the stairs. Jared laughed. "Shoot." "Trap him." Silver chains wrapped around Damien, the silver burning his flesh. The pain triggered his blood curse, and his wolf took control, his eyes turning red. Jared lunged with his sword, but Damien, lost to madness, broke the chains and struck Jared into the wall. Sophia fired more arrows, but Damien caught them with his bare hands. He approached her, his aura lethal. Clara reached the courtyard, her heart cold. Damien was out of control, hitting a guard who approached. His body was shifting into a monster. Jared threw a purple wolfsbane jar at Damien, making him collapse in pain, his red eyes locking on Clara as if she were prey. He lunged at her, claws ready to strike. Chapter 8. The Royal Blood. The underground chamber of the fortress shook under the force of the battle. Damien writhed on the floor, his claws tearing the stone as the poison destroyed his mind. Jared and Sophia burst into the room, followed by hunters. Jared smiled at the sight of the fallen king. "Look at the great Lycan King," Jared sneered. "Fallen to silver, and you, Clara, you think you can save him?" Sophia stepped forward with her bow. "Let me kill her." Damien tried to rise, but the poison paralyzed him. Clara stood her ground, her hand touching her shoulder scar. Under her tunic, the silver wolf seal burned. The seal her mother had placed on her was breaking. A freezing wind swept the room, turning the floor to ice. Clara's hair turned silver and her eyes glowed ice blue. The silver wolf spirit rose behind her. Jared's smile vanished. "You are a silver wolf." Sophia tried to run, but the ice froze the hunters, turning them into stone pillars. The ice climbed Jared and Sophia's legs, pinning them to the floor. Clara turned to Damien, kneeling beside him. His skin was burning, the curse fighting her cold. She knew her blood was the only cure. She cut her wrist with a silver shard, letting her silver-tinged blood flow. She pressed her wrist to his lips. "Drink," she whispered. Damien drank, the cooling blood lowering his fever. The black veins receded and his gold eyes returned to focus. He looked at her silver hair, realizing she was his fated queen. The effort drained Clara and she collapsed into his arms. Damien held her tight. Suddenly the horn of the High Council echoed from the gates. The elders had arrived, not to help, but to judge. Chapter 9, The Judgment. The great hall was silent as the High Council elders sat on their benches. Damien sat on his throne, his alpha aura heavy, while Jared and Sophia stood in chains. Jared's armor was broken, and Sophia shivered in fear, their plan defeated. Clara stood beside Damien, her silver hair shining, her shoulder fully healed. An elder spoke. "Jared, you are accused of conspiring with hunters. How do you plead?" "This is a lie," Jared shouted. "Clara is a runaway slave who framed me." Clara stepped forward, placing Jared's letter and the hunter's toxin on the table. The elders read the treaty, their faces darkening. "The evidence is clear," the head elder said. Jared panicked, pointing at Sophia. "It was her. She forced me to sign. Spare me." Sophia stared in disbelief. "You coward." "You wrote the letter." Damien stood up, his pressure extinguishing the torches. He walked down to Jared. "By pack law, you are stripped of your alpha title and sentenced to death," Damien said. With a swift stroke of his sword, Jared was executed. Damien turned to Sophia. "You are banished to the feral Wastelands to survive the storm." Sophia was dragged away, screaming, and thrown out of the gates. Clara turned to Damien, but his face went pale, his eyes turned black, the curse flaring again. "Clara, run," he gasped before collapsing. Chapter 10. The Queen of the North, the crimson eclipse light bathed the peak of the mountain, marking the time of the ritual. The great hall of Eclipse Fortress was warm, the torches casting a golden light on the stone walls. The traitors had been punished, and the pack prepared for a new era. Clara stood before the mirror, wearing a silver-gray fur cloak. Underneath, the scar from Jared's claws was faded but visible, a reminder of her journey. She was no longer the weak Omega, she was the Silver Wolf Queen. The door opened, and Damien entered in a black tunic embroidered with the Eclipse crest. His amber eyes watched her with warmth. "Are you ready, my Clara?" he asked. "I am ready," she said, taking his hand. They walked down the corridor to the open-air altar. The pack members bowed as they passed, their old suspicion replaced by deep respect. Damien led her to the center of the altar, under the red light of the eclipse. He held her face in his hands. "Clara, destiny brought you to me," he said, "but I choose you as my Luna not just because of the bond. I choose you for your courage. You are the only one who can rule beside me." Clara placed her hand on his chest. "I accept you, Damien. I accept my place beside you." Damien leaned down, his fangs grazing her neck. Under the peak of the eclipse, he bit down a claiming bite that sealed their souls. A wave of silver and gold light erupted from them, pushing back the dark. The Luna mark appeared on Clara's collarbone. "Behold the Luna of the North." Damien roared. The pack knelt in the snow, their howls echoing through the mountains. At the feast, Clara sat beside Damien, feeling a sense of peace she had never known. They would build a strong, unified North. Later, Clara walked back to the tower alone. The castle was quiet, the wind soft. She stood on the balcony, looking at the dark peaks. Suddenly, a cold shiver ran down her spine, her Luna mark burned, and her wolf growled in fear. The wind carried the smell of sulfur and silver hunters. A wounded guard collapsed at her feet, a silver arrow in his chest. "Luna, run. They are coming for the Silver Wolf." A dark figure leaped over the balcony. Wearing a steel mask, he pointed a silver crossbow at her chest. "Found you, last Silver Wolf." The crossbow clicked, and the arrow flew. The ancient stone structures of the Eclipse Fortress stood as a testament to the resilience of the Lycan race. Built upon the volcanic basalt of an extinct mountain range, its walls had withstood centuries of siege and harsh winters. The dark obsidian stone seemed to absorb the light of the moon, casting a protective shadow over the inhabitants. Inside, the corridors were kept warm by geothermal springs, creating a microclimate that allowed rare medicinal herbs to grow even in the dead of winter. Clara felt a strange sense of belonging as she walked the halls, the ancient stone whisper stories of survival. The history of the northern packs was a long record of conflict, survival, and adaptation. Unlike the southern packs who lived in fertile lands and built massive cities, the northern wolves had to fight the environment itself for resources. This harsh reality shaped their laws and customs, placing a premium on strength, loyalty, and practical skills. The Alpha was not just a leader, but the primary defender of the pack's boundary. When Jared betrayed this trust, he violated the most sacred law of the North, and his execution was the only logical outcome under their code. The Silver Frost Wolf lineage was one of the oldest royal bloodlines among the northern tribes, known for their unique connection to the moon's energy and their mastery of ice magic. For generations, they had ruled the high peaks, their presence bringing stability and prosperity to the region. However, the greed of rival alphas and the rise of the Silver Hunters had led to their decline, until it was believed the line was completely extinct. Clara's awakening did not just reveal her true identity. It restored a legendary power that could unite the fractured packs of the North. The bond between fated mates was a mysterious force, often discussed in legends but rarely witnessed in its purest form. It was said to be a connection forged by the moon goddess herself, linking two souls across distance and time. When the bond was activated, it brought a profound sense of completeness and a massive surge of spiritual energy. For Damien, the bond was his salvation, the only force capable of calming the madness of his blood curse. For Clara, it was the key that unlocked her sealed heritage, giving her the strength to stand against her oppressors. The Black Guard was the elite military force of the Eclipse Pack, consisting of the most skilled and disciplined warriors in the region. They wore armor crafted from volcanic obsidian and treated with magic to resist silver weapons, making them formidable opponents on the battlefield. Their loyalty to Damien was absolute, built on years of shared hardship and mutual respect. When they bowed to Clara, it was not just a gesture of obedience to their king's mate, but an acknowledgement of her own strength and the healing she had brought to their pack. The environment of the feral wastelands was a silent, frozen wilderness where only the hardiest creatures could survive. The snow drifted in deep banks against the dead trees, and the wind carried a biting chill that could freeze a man in hours. Yet beneath the ice there was a quiet beauty, a landscape of pure white under the pale winter sun. For Clara, this wasteland had been a place of exile, but it also became the crucible where her true strength was tested and her royal heritage was finally awakened. During her years of servitude in the Bloodtooth Pack, Clara had secretly kept a journal of her botanical discoveries, recording the properties of every winter herb she found. This journal, written on scraps of deerskin, was her most prized possession, representing her dedication to her craft despite her low status. Her knowledge of these rare plants allowed her to create the specialized ointments that saved Lucas's life and stabilized Damien's wounds, proving that her skills were as valuable as any warrior's strength. The blood curse was a dark inheritance that plagued the royal Lycan family, a legacy of an ancient battle where a king had traded his sanity for the power to save his pack. The curse remained in the bloodline, flaring up during the full moon and driving the host into a state of feral madness. Damien had fought this curse his entire life, his strong will the only barrier between him and complete insanity. The discovery of Clara, the fated silver wolf, was the only cure, her pure energy neutralizing the darkness in his blood. The great hall of the fortress was decorated with massive tapestries that told the story of the pack's founding. The scenes depicted the first Lycan king leading his people through the mountain passes, escaping the fires of the south to build a new home in the ice. The warriors would gather under these tapestries to drink and sing, reinforcing their shared history and identity. Clara felt a deep sense of respect for this history, realizing that the pack's strength was built on a foundation of sacrifice and unity. The hot springs beneath the West Tower were a vital resource for the fortress, providing a constant source of hot water and steam that was used for heating and bathing. The mineral-rich water had natural healing properties, which Clara used to prepare her herbal baths. The warmth of the springs created a small oasis of green vegetation in the cavern, a place where she could grow delicate healing flowers that could not survive the cold air above, ensuring a steady supply of medicine throughout the year. The preparations for the lunar coronation were managed with great care by the palace staff, who decorated the stone altar with pine boughs and silver ribbons. The ceremony was a public declaration of the fated bond, requiring the approval of the pack elders and the acceptance of the warriors. The atmosphere was festive, with large bonfires burning in the courtyard and the smell of roasting meat filling the air. It was a day of celebration, marking the official beginning of a new reign of peace. The betrayal of Jared was a severe blow to the stability of the border packs, who had trusted him to defend their territory against the hunters. His alliance with the Silver Hunters was a desperate bid to maintain his power, showing that he valued his own ambition over the lives of his pack members. His trial before the High Council was a necessary step to restore justice and demonstrate that the laws of the Werewolf Alliance applied to everyone, regardless of their status. Silas spent his days in the quiet vaults of the archives, translating ancient texts that described the early history of the Northern Packs. He was a man of immense knowledge, his mind a repository of legends, treaties, and botanical formulas. His research was crucial in helping Clara understand the nature of the Silver Wolf magic and the specific runes needed to strengthen the fortress defenses, providing the intellectual support that complemented the warrior's physical strength. As the spring sun began to warm the valley, the ice on the lakes began to crack, sending an echoing sound through the mountains. The arrival of the new season was celebrated with the planting of the spring crops and the gathering of fresh herbs. Clara worked alongside the pack members in the gardens, teaching them how to cultivate the healing plants and establishing a community clinic that provided free medical care to all wolves, ensuring a healthier and more prosperous future. The love between Damien and Clara was a quiet, steady force that grew stronger with each passing day. He was her protector, using his military power to shield her from the dangers of the world, while she was his anchor, using her healing magic to keep the darkness of the curse at bay. Together they represented the perfect balance of strength and compassion, a partnership that would guide the Northern Packs into a new era of stability and growth. The mental connection between fated mates was a constant source of comfort, allowing them to share thoughts and emotions without words. When Damien was away on border patrols, Clara could feel his presence in her mind, a warm spark that reassured her of his safety. This connection also allowed them to coordinate their efforts during the Hunter attack, ensuring that the defenses of the fortress were maintained even in the midst of chaos. The faded scar on Clara's shoulder was a reminder of the pain she had survived, but it was also a symbol of her resilience. She did not hide it, wearing her royal robes with pride as she stood beside Damien on the balcony. The pack members looked at her with admiration, knowing that their new Luna had survived the worst the Wastes could offer, and had emerged stronger, a true queen who would lead them with courage. The reforms introduced by Clara were designed to improve the lives of the Omega Wolves, who had long been marginalized in the northern packs. She established training programs that allowed them to learn trades and medicine, giving them a valuable role in the community and breaking the cycle of poverty. Her work was highly successful, earning her the love of the common people and the respect of the pack elders. The wind from the glaciers carried the scent of winter pine, a clean, sharp smell that defined the northern territory. Even during the warmest spring days, the mountains remained capped with snow, a constant reminder of the environment's power. Clara loved this land, finding a wild beauty in its frozen peaks and silent forests, a place where she had found her true destiny, and a home where she was valued and loved. The claiming bite was a sacred ritual that bound the fated mates physically and spiritually, their life forces merging under the light of the moon. The mark on Clara's collarbone glowed with a soft silver light, a permanent symbol of her position as the Luna of Eclipse. The celebration that followed was a joyous event, with music and dancing that lasted until dawn, uniting the pack in a shared hope for the future. The metal container that held the hunter's toxin was lined with silver leaf to prevent the poison from degrading, a design that showed the advanced technology used by the hunters. Clara spent hours analyzing the chemical structure of the poison, identifying the specific herbs used to create the toxin. Her research allowed her to develop an antidote that could neutralize the poison, protecting the warriors. The Black Guard kept a constant watch on the border checkpoints, using carrier hawks to send messages back to the fortress. They were highly trained to recognize the signs of hunter activity, ensuring that any threat was detected before it could reach the inner territory. The safety of the pack was their primary concern, and they performed their duties with absolute dedication. The Great Hall was heated by a massive central hearth, where logs of cedar and oak burned day and night. The warmth of the fire created a welcoming space, where the pack members could gather to share meals and discuss the events of the day. The hall was a hub of community life, a place where the bonds of the pack were reinforced through shared stories and laughter. Silas's records showed that the Silver Wolf lineage had a natural affinity for the elements of winter, allowing them to channel the energy of the snow and ice. This magic was not destructive by nature, but protective, used to build barriers and freeze enemies to prevent violence. Clara's ability to freeze the hunters was a manifestation of this ancient magic, a shield for her pack. The festival of the first spring flower was a traditional celebration in the Eclipse pack, marking the day when the first primrose bloomed on the mountain slopes. The children would gather these flowers to make garlands for the Luna, a gesture of affection that Clara cherished. It was a day of joy and hope, celebrating the return of life to the frozen mountains. The guards at the main gate were equipped with specialized detectors that could identify the presence of wolfsbane or silver, preventing any hidden weapons from entering the fortress. Their vigilance was the first line of defense, ensuring that the palace remained a safe sanctuary for the royal family and the citizens of Eclipse. Martha managed the kitchen with efficiency, preparing large quantities of hearty stews and baking fresh loaves of rye bread for the castle staff. She was a motherly figure in the palace, always ready with a kind word and a warm meal for the young warriors who returned from long patrols in the freezing cold. The volcanic stone of the fortress walls was treated with a special glaze that prevented the accumulation of ice, ensuring that the walls remained dry and stable even during the most severe winter storms. This engineering detail was crucial for maintaining the structural integrity of the castle, preventing damage from frost heave. The medical clinic established by Clara was equipped with clean beds, surgical tools, and a large inventory of herbal remedies. She trained several young wolves from the border packs to work as medical assistants, establishing a network of care that improved the health and safety of the entire community. The claiming bond was a source of great spiritual strength, allowing Gideon to share his physical energy with Clara when she was fatigued. This mutual support was essential during the long days of the reconstruction, helping them manage the responsibilities of leadership without succumbing to physical exhaustion. The trade treaty with the Eastern Werewolf Alliance was finalized under Clara's supervision, bringing rare books, silks, and agricultural tools to the Eclipse markets. In return, the Northern Pack exported high-quality timber and basalt stone, creating a mutually beneficial partnership that strengthened their economy. The library archives contained ancient maps of the Northern Territories, showing the locations of hidden valleys and abandoned settlements. Clara used these maps to plan the expansion of the Pack's territory, identifying safe areas for new villages and pastures that would support their growing population. The young pups of the Pack were taught the history of the Werewolf Alliance by the elders, learning the value of cooperation and honor from a young age. Clara would often visit the schoolroom, sharing stories of her own travels and encouraging the children to pursue their studies with dedication and curiosity. The fireplace in the master bedroom was built from dark basalt stone that retained heat for hours after the fire was extinguished. It was a peaceful sanctuary, where Damien and Clara could discuss the affairs of the day, or simply enjoy the quiet comfort of their bond, away from the public duties of the court. The security runes along the outer walls were checked daily by the Pack shamans, ensuring that their magical properties were intact. The runes were designed to detect any hostile energy signatures, providing an early warning system that allowed the Black Guard to respond to threats before they reached the gates. A healer's education was a lifelong journey, requiring a deep understanding of the interactions between different plants and the spiritual energy of the patient. Clara spent her evenings translating ancient medical scrolls from the southern kingdoms, expanding her knowledge to provide better care. The legend of the first Silver Wolf Queen was a popular story among the young girls of the Pack, who dreamed of emulating her courage and wisdom. She was said to have built the first clinics and schools in the north, establishing a legacy of compassion that Clara was now continuing under her own reign. The High Council trials were held in the open-air pavilion of the mountains, a structure built from ancient stone columns that overlooked the snow-covered valleys below. The location was chosen for its spiritual significance, close to the spirits of the ancestors who watched over their decisions. The great sword carried by Damien was a masterpiece of the northern smiths, its blade folded dozens of times to create a steel that was both flexible and incredibly sharp. The hilt was inlaid with volcanic ash and gold leaf, a design that represented the volcanic fires that burned beneath the snow. In the deep valleys surrounding the fortress, wild winter roses bloomed even in the coldest temperatures, their red petals a stark contrast to the white snow. The Pack viewed these flowers as a symbol of resilience, a reminder that beauty could thrive even in the harshest environments. The communications network of the fortress relied on a system of running couriers and carrier hawks, ensuring that messages were delivered quickly even during blizzards. This organization was key to their military efficiency, allowing them to coordinate defenses and resources across their territory. Clara's first winter as Luna was busy but fulfilling, as she worked to establish new medical clinics and schools across the Northern Territory. She visited the border packs regularly, bringing resources and training local healers to improve their standards of care. The basalt columns of the Great Hall were polished to a mirror finish, reflecting the light of the torches and creating a grand, majestic space. The columns were carved with images of fighting wolves and celestial bodies, representing the connection between the Pack and the cosmos. The security checkpoints along the mountain passes were manned by experienced trackers, who monitored the movement of visitors and traders. They were equipped with communication mirrors that allowed them to send instant alerts to the fortress if any suspicious activity was detected. The history of the Bloodtooth Pack was one of struggle and poverty, their territory located in a barren region with limited resources. This economic hardship had led to their aggressive behavior and their willingness to ally with hunters, a mistake that Clara was now working to correct through trade. During the quiet mornings in the dispensary, Clara would prepare herbal remedies for the warriors, her mind focused on the ratios of lavender, chamomile, and wintermint. She found peace in the work, the familiar smells bringing back memories of her mother's workshop. The celebration of the claiming bond was a historic event, bringing together representatives from all northern packs to witness the union of the Lichen King and the Silver Wolf. The festival lasted for 3 days, featuring tournaments, banquets, and musical performances. The basalt cliffs surrounding the fortress were home to rare nesting birds that returned every spring, their high-pitched calls echoing off the rock faces. The pack viewed their return as a sign of good fortune, marking the official end of the winter season. The trade routes with the Eastern Pack were expanded under the new treaty, bringing unique spices, silks, and medical texts to the Eclipse markets. This cultural exchange enriched the community, introducing new ideas and technologies that helped them improve their quality of life. The education of the young wolves in the fortress was a top priority, with classes held daily in the library under the supervision of Silas and the elders. The children learned the history of their lineage alongside geography, mathematics, and tactical combat. The geothermal hot springs in the lower levels were surrounded by cozy cabins and lush vegetation that thrived in the warm, humid environment, creating a peaceful oasis. It was here that Clara and Damien spent their free time, enjoying the beauty of nature away from the palace. Clara's notebook of deerskin was wrapped in a soft velvet cloth to protect it from the damp air of the dispensary, its worn pages containing the wisdom of generations of healers. She added her own formulas to the book, building a comprehensive medical archive. The legendary battles fought by the ancestors of the Eclipse Pack were commemorated in the annual winter bonfire, where the warriors gathered to sing battle songs and drink honey wine. The firelight projected large shadows of fighting wolves on the stone walls. The security of the subterranean water chambers was monitored by specialized magical sensors that could detect any changes in water pressure or temperature, preventing any attempts of sabotage from rogue packs. The chambers were protected by heavy iron gates. Clara's training sessions in the dispensary were attended by several young apprentices from the border packs, who were eager to learn her healing techniques. She taught them the classification of northern plants and the preparation of complex tonics. The celebration of the claiming bond of the fated mates lasted for 3 full days, with tournaments, banquets, and musical performances that brought together members from all northern packs. The festival was a powerful symbol of unity. The ancient customs of the northern tribes were detailed in the parchment logs kept by Silas in the deepest vaults of the archives, providing an invaluable record of their origin. The logs described the early rituals of peace and alignment. The high stone walls of the tower were built to absorb the kinetic energy of siege weapons, their double-layered basalt construction reinforced with powdered obsidian and steel dust. This made the structure virtually indestructible. Clara's first winter, as Luna was celebrated with a grand hunt that brought together the finest trackers from all northern packs, fostering a spirit of friendly competition and camaraderie. The event was a massive success, helping the members. The restoration of the ancient treaty was recorded on large stone tablets erected in the center of the town square, serving as a permanent reminder of their commitment to peace. The tablets were carved by the finest stonemasons. Clara's work in the greenhouses was supported by a dedicated team of botanists from the neighboring packs, who brought unique seeds and training techniques to the Eclipse Gardens. This scientific collaboration was highly successful. The establishment of the Frontier Healing Sanctuary marked a historic shift in the social structure of the Northern Kingdom, turning a symbol of oppression into a monument of healing and compassion. The project was celebrated by all wolves. The medical records of the Frontier Healing Sanctuary were carefully logged in a central ledger, ensuring that each patient's progress was monitored and their treatments adjusted according to their specific needs. This systematic approach, the volcanic rocks used in the construction of the greenhouse walls, were highly heat-retentive, absorbing solar energy during the day and slowly releasing it at night to maintain a warm, tropical climate. This allowed Clara to grow herbs. Clara's first spring as the medical minister of the North was celebrated with a ceremony in the sanctuary garden, where she was presented with a wreath of fresh snow jasmine flowers by the children of the border packs. The simple gesture. The trade routes with the mountain packs were expanded under the new treaty, bringing unique spices, silks, and medical texts to the Eclipse libraries. This cultural exchange enriched the community, introducing advanced agricultural. The greenhouse was also equipped with automatic watering systems powered by gravitational flow, drawing warm mineral water directly from the nearby hot springs. This automated irrigation ensured that the delicate seedlings of winter. Clara's integration of the Northern Healers into a unified medical guild was a monumental success. establishing standardized training programs and certifications for apprentices. The guild held annual conferences. The local children of the Eclipse Pack often gathered in the clinic courtyard after school, fascinated by the colorful rows of medicinal flowers and the friendly guards. Clara would frequently spend her afternoons teaching them. The volcanic heat also kept the water pipes from freezing, ensuring a continuous supply of fresh spring water to the clinic's kitchens and recovery rooms, even during the most severe winter blizzards. This constant availability, the historical alliance between the Eclipse Pack and the Southern Healer Guilds, was documented on large stone tablets erected in the center of the library courtyard, serving as a reminder of their shared commitment. The medical records were stored in a secure stone vault adjacent to the main clinic, protected by double-locked iron doors and monitored by trusted guards. This secure archiving prevented any unauthorized access to sensitive patient. Clara's new system of patient care was highly efficient, dividing the clinic into specialized wards for general healing, emergency surgery, and herbal recovery. This organized layout allowed the staff to respond quickly. The geothermal hot springs in the lower caverns were a popular gathering place for the staff during their off-shift hours, offering a warm and relaxing environment to recover from their demanding work. Clara encouraged this. The stone walls of the dispensary were lined with wooden shelves, containing dried herbs and jars of ointments that Clara had prepared. The soothing aroma of chamomile and lavender filled the room, providing a peaceful. The Black Guard patrolled the outer battlements in shifts, their keen eyes watching the snow-covered valleys below for any signs of danger. They were disciplined and loyal, ready to defend the fortress at a moment's notice. In the evenings, the pack members would gather in the Great Hall, sharing stories and laughter around the massive stone fireplace. The warmth of the fire and the sense of community brought comfort to everyone. Silas spent most of his time in the deepest archives, cataloging ancient scrolls and histories of the Northern Alliances. His knowledge was invaluable, a living library that guided the leaders in times of political tension. The coming of spring was celebrated with a simple festival in the courtyard, where the children presented the Luna with wreaths of fresh flowers. It was a time of renewal, symbolizing the hope and peace that Clara had brought. The guards at the main gate were highly vigilant, checking every visitor for signs of silver weapons or poisoned wolfsbane to ensure the safety of the fortress. Martha worked tirelessly in the kitchen, preparing huge cauldrons of stew and baking fresh bread for the warriors and healers who worked long hours in the cold. The cold winds from the northern glaciers brought a sudden drop in temperature, coating the basalt walls of the fortress in a thick layer of frost. The guards on duty wrapped their heavy wool cloaks tighter around themselves. Clara spent her afternoons studying the ancient scrolls left behind by the previous healers of the pack. She wanted to expand her knowledge of the local plants and find new ways to blend them to treat the warriors' injuries. The pack members held a quiet respect for their new Luna, seeing how she worked tirelessly in the dispensary to treat the sick and wounded. Her gentle touch and compassionate nature brought comfort to everyone in the fortress. The geothermal waters of the hot springs continued to flow through the stone pipes, providing a steady supply of heat to the greenhouse and recovery rooms. This constant warmth was essential for maintaining a comfortable. The mountain trails were difficult to navigate during the winter season, as deep snowdrifts and hidden ice crevices made travel highly hazardous for anyone without a guide. The pack scouts relied on their sharp senses. The warriors of Eclipse Pack were proud of their heritage, often sharing tales of the legendary battles fought by their ancestors to protect their territory. These stories were passed down from generation to generation. Clara worked carefully to organize the clinic's inventory, labeling each jar and bottle to ensure that the healers could find the necessary medicines quickly. Her attention to detail was appreciated by the entire team. The geothermal heat from the springs kept the stone corridors of the palace warm and dry, preventing the formation of frost on the walls during the coldest blizzards. This natural heating system was a blessing for thee. Damien spent his mornings meeting with the pack elders to discuss the border security and trade agreements with neighboring packs. He was dedicated to ensuring the prosperity and safety of his people, working. The winter storm continued to blow across the high cliffs, making the stone walls of the West Tower shiver in the dark. The guards kept a close watch on the perimeter, their faces covered in frost. Clara sat near the fire, her fingers working to mix the dried silver leaves with winter primrose. She knew the resulting paste would be highly effective in reducing the inflammation on Damien's shoulder. The pack members feel a deep gratitude for the healer, who had saved their king from the blood curse. They showed their respect by bringing fresh wood and food to the watchtower every morning. The volcanic waters of the hot springs bubbled in the underground cavern, sending warm steam through the stone pipes to heat the palace chambers. This natural system was a source of comfort for the wolves. Silas spent his afternoons cataloging the new scrolls brought from the eastern packs, adding them to the historical vaults of the library. His research was crucial for the pack's development. The young pups ran through the halls of the fortress, their laughter bringing a touch of warmth to the dark stone walls. Clara watched them with a smile, hoping for a peaceful future. The boundary stones of the Eclipse Pack were checked regularly by the scouts, who marked any signs of hunter activity or rogue incursions. Their vigilance kept the inner territory safe from harm. The geothermal pipes running beneath the stone floors kept the courtyard free of ice, allowing the warriors to train without danger of slipping. This engineering was key to their daily readiness. The trade caravans from the mountain packs arrived regularly, bringing spices, grain, and new medical texts to the Eclipse markets. This economic exchange strengthened the alliance between packs. The fated connection between the Lichen King and the Silver Wolf was a constant source of wonder for the elders. They viewed the union as a sign of divine favor, bringing prosperity to the land. The snow jasmine flowers planted in the greenhouse began to bloom, their sweet aroma filling the warm air and providing a fresh source of ingredients for Clara's healing ointments. The security protocols at the main gate were updated to include magic wards that could detect silver explosives. This extra layer of defense ensured that no hidden threat could enter the fortress. Martha worked in the kitchen, preparing large pots of vegetable stew and baking fresh bread for the warriors returning from the cold borders. Her warm meals were a comfort to everyone in the castle. The volcanic heat kept the water pipes from freezing, ensuring a continuous supply of clean water to the dispensary and kitchens even during the most severe winter blizzards of the north. The historical treaty between the northern packs was carved on stone tablets in the library courtyard, serving as a reminder of their shared commitment to peace and mutual defense. The medical vault adjacent to the clinic was protected by heavy iron doors, keeping the sensitive patient records safe from any unauthorized access or political exploitation by rival packs. Clara's new ward system allowed the clinic to treat multiple patients at the same time, separating the recovering warriors from the general public to ensure a quiet, peaceful healing environment. The geothermal springs in the lower levels were a popular spot for the warriors to relax after a long day of training. The warm water helped soothe their muscles and accelerate their recovery. The stone walls of the dispensary were decorated with dried lavender bundles, bringing a pleasant, calming scent to the room that helped ease the anxiety of the patients waiting for treatment. The Black Guard kept a vigilant watch on the mountain passes, using signal flags to communicate with the fortress in case of emergency. Their prompt reporting prevented any surprise attacks. In the evenings, the pack members would gather in the Grand Hall to listen to the old songs of the ancestors, sharing stories and reinforcing their commitment to the pack's honor. Silas' translation work was highly valued by the court, as he unlocked the secrets of ancient treaties that defined the border limits and pasture rights of the different northern packs. The annual spring festival was celebrated with tournaments and feast, bringing together members from all the allied packs to celebrate the renewal of life and the strength of their bond. The security of the underground granaries was monitored by trusted guards, who ensured that the food supplies were kept dry and safe from any attempts of sabotage or theft during the winter. Clara's training sessions for the young healers were highly successful, establishing a standard of medical care that was adopted by all the border villages, improving the health of many. The claiming ceremony was a sacred event that brought a sense of unity to the pack, confirming the fated bond between the rulers and bringing the goddess's blessings to their reign. The basalt stone used to build the outer walls was reinforced with steel bands, making the fortress invulnerable to the standard siege weapons used by the southern alliances. Clara's first spring as Luna was marked by the establishment of the Frontier Healing Sanctuary, a facility dedicated to providing free medical care to the poor and displaced wolves. The treaty tablets in the town square were visited by the school children, who learned the history of their alliance and the importance of honor and justice from the carvings. The agricultural team in the greenhouse experimented with new varieties of winter grain, hoping to increase the pack's food security during the long months of the northern winter. The volcanic stone paths around the castle were kept warm by the hot springs, creating dry walkways that allowed the residents to move between the buildings without slipping on the ice. The communication mirrors used by the scouts were highly effective, allowing them to send coded light signals across the valleys to report any suspicious movements in real time. Clara's dedication to her work earned her the love and respect of the pack, who saw her not just as the king's mate, but as a true leader who cared for the well-being of every wolf. The hot springs cavern was decorated with glowing crystals that reflected off the warm water, creating a magical, peaceful environment where Damien and Clara could escape their duties. The deerskin notebook containing Clara's formulas was placed in a secure glass case in the archives, preserved as a historical document that would guide future generations of healers. The annual winter hunt was a test of skill and endurance for the young warriors, who tracked wild game through the deep snow to prove their readiness to join the elite forces. The basalt mine near the fortress was managed with strict safety rules, ensuring that the workers were protected while extracting the stone needed for the castle's expansion. Clara's first greenhouse harvest was a cause for celebration, bringing fresh greens and tomatoes to the royal table during the coldest month of the winter, a rare luxury in the north. The connection between the fated mates allowed them to coordinate their thoughts during the council meetings, ensuring that they presented a unified front to the pack elders. The border pack sent their finest weavers to the fortress, bringing wool rugs and blankets that were used to decorate the Luna Tower and keep the chambers warm and comfortable. The guards on the watchtowers maintained a continuous vigil, their eyes scanning the dark horizon for any signs of enemy movement or unusual lights. They were equipped with brass spyglasses and signal horns to alert the main garrison immediately if any suspicious activity was detected in the valley below. Evangeline spent her afternoons in the glass greenhouse, propagating the seedlings of winter mint and snow jasmine. She was dedicated to establishing a sustainable source of fresh herbs for the fortress clinic, ensuring that they had a steady supply of medicine throughout the long northern winter months. The pack members felt a deep pride in their fated rulers, seeing how Gideon and Clara worked together to manage the pack affairs and improve the living conditions of the border packs. Their joint decisions brought a sense of stability and justice that had been missing for years. The geothermal water pipes running through the palace corridors kept the stone walls dry and warm, preventing the formation of thick ice sheets. This natural heating system was a marvel of ancient engineering, providing a comfortable living environment for the inhabitants during the coldest winter blizzards. Gideon held regular council meetings with the pack elders to discuss the border patrol schedules and trade agreements with neighboring packs. He listened to their advice with respect, working tirelessly to ensure the security and prosperity of his people, earning their absolute loyalty. The children of the fortress clinic were taught how to identify common healing plants, their laughter echoing through the sunny courtyard during the afternoon classes. Clara hoped that by sowing the seeds of knowledge early, she could prepare the next generation of healers for the pack. The stone arches of the Great Hall were built by the early masonry experts of the pack, their geometric patterns representing the connection between the earthly fortress and the celestial cycles. Clara spent her evenings sitting under these arches, watching the firelight dance and feeling a deep sense of peace.